This is NewsDesk. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Jason Miller, here today with Dr. David Summers, director of the Summers Institute of Foreign Affairs. David, let's get started right away with Nouriel Roubini. Economist Nouriel Roubini, nicknamed Dr. Doom, tweeted Monday that the perfect storm he predicted earlier this year, a slowdown in the U.S., Europe, and China, is now occurring. Roubini predicted in May that these four elements, stalling U.S. growth, debt troubles in Europe, slowdown in China, and military conflict in Iran, would come together to create the perfect storm in 2013. This was from Advisor One. What do you think about that? That's sobering.
I think it's a bit early to come to that conclusion. Military conflict with Iran, that's a key element of Mr. Roubini's prediction. And there's a very good possibility that that will not happen. That's the first thing. Secondly, yes, a slowdown. There is a slowdown in the United States, of course in Europe, and indeed even in China. But to what extent? A perfect storm makes us think that the whole thing is going to be catastrophic. I think that's somewhat unlikely at this particular point, unless we do have a military conflict with Iran. Then perhaps we could see another major recession.
Well, let me just tell you another thing that Roubini said is that unlike 2008, the last big
major recession,
start of a recession, he said central banks had policy bullets. There was a lot of cash and interest rates were fairly high, so there was room to lower them. But he said this time around, policymakers are running out of rabbits to pull out of their hat. You know, they've already got interest rates down to almost zero. What else can they do?
That's true, of course.
And they've done so much borrowing.
Quantitative easing.
Sure. There's a huge amount of debt these governments have piled up. So it could be very serious. And all we had back then was Lehman Brothers going bust.
That's right.
That started the ball rolling. So these are
That's right.
bigger issues.
Well, he wants to be ahead of the curve, Professor Roubini does, and he does have a good track record. So it is, if nothing else, somewhat sobering.
Well, you know, for our viewers that maybe aren't familiar with Nouriel Roubini, he is quite a sought-after economist because he called that last recession.
Just about the only one who did.
Yeah, so he's quite prescient.
Yes, exactly.
Love to use that word. All right, next. This is from Reuters. Signs are growing that Europe's economic and monetary union may be fragmenting faster than policymakers can repair it. Deposit flight from Spanish banks has been gaining pace, and it is not clear a Eurozone agreement to lend Madrid up to 100 billion euros in rescue funds will reverse the flows.
It's very hard to control that. The same thing happened in Greece. That is, regular Greeks with deposits in the banks decided, quite, if you like, presciently, that it would be prudent for them to take their money out in euros, therefore protecting the value. To say the least, I think he inflates the situation.
Maybe so. Now there's two articles about Mali. Mali's a African country in northwest part of the continent. There's been some things going on there that are interesting.
Oh my.
This is from the UK Daily Mail. Soldiers announced that they had seized control of Mali yesterday in an angry reaction to the government's weak response to an uprising of Gaddafi fighters in the north of the country. Gaddafi, from Libya, hired these guys as mercenaries.
Mercs, that's right.
So now they go back to Mali.
They've got nothing to do.
They have all their weapons.
Business is business.
They figure, what the heck?
Why, of course.
So they took the northern half of the country.
Exactly.
And
what does one expect?
And the Malis and these guys, the mercenaries, are.
If we're not so tragic, it'd be funny.
Right. Well, they're a little different ethnic group than the southern Mali folks. They're called Tuaregs.
The Tuaregs, yes.
It's a Muslim, whatever, Arab group. And anyway, so the Malians, Malian soldiers were angry that the weak government didn't fight effectively these rebels in the north. So they did a coup themselves, these soldiers.
Right.
And took over, an accidental coup, they call it. They didn't expect to. They only went to the capital to demonstrate.
But then, well, as long as they were there.
But then the government in the Capitol building ran away, so they figured, what the heck, so they went.
Take over.
So, anyway,
Anyway,
comments?
it's pathetic, really, to be frank with you. Mali is an impoverished nation.
Right.
And the last thing that it needs is this kind of battle over governmental control. What they need is decent government that will enable foreign aid, at least, to come to them. But right now, you know, the American policy on foreign aid is we will not give aid to governments that do not show democratic inclinations and are transparent.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
Interesting change of policy.
Oh, significant change of policy.
We used to seem to prefer
Those
Strong-
days are gone.
strong
Those-
leadership.
all those days are gone. Those days are gone.
Wow, interesting. Because then they were solid allies. We didn't have to worry about them, but they weren't. It wasn't good for the countries.
Oh, yes.
I think this is a better policy. Now, what famous city is in Mali?
Timbuktu.
Timbuktu. I'm sure everyone's heard of that. Okay.
Oh, yes.
All right, next is from the Washington Post. Same area, Mali. A Toyota Land Cruiser skidded off a bridge in Mali. The bodies of 3 U.S. commandos alongside 3 dead women were found there in the wreck. The women killed in the wreck were identified as Moroccan prostitutes who had been riding with the soldiers. The crash has provided a rare glimpse of elite U.S. commando units in North Africa, where they have been secretly engaged in counterterrorism actions against Al-Qaeda. Who would ever know? You know, they don't get much publicity about that part of the world.
No, and this kind of publicity is the kind that we don't necessarily like.
I guess these 3 guys were on leave or something.
R&R, little R&R
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yes.
But meanwhile, the Moroccan prostitutes, unless they were doing their trade in Mali, they came from fairly far away.
I don't need to comment on that matter. Hard to say.
All right, so next. This from ABC News. Palestinian President Abbas has given final approval to dig up Yasser Arafat's remains and is pressing for an investigation of his death in 2004. The decision came after a Swiss lab detected elevated traces of lethal radioactive agent on his clothing that I guess they saved. Well, look, you know, didn't the Russians end up killing one of their
Yes,
one of their spies or something in
London, one of their
same
not
method?
one of their spies, well, yes, he was once one of their spies who turned dissident.
Right.
That's true.
And you know who else? A fellow that was running for office in Ukraine, but he survived.
That's right. He became president of Ukraine at
All
one
right.
time. That's right. Nobody knows in this particular situation, and it's been so long afterwards. It's really hard to say.
Well, I guess if the Israelis wanted to kill him, I don't know if our viewers remember, but Arafat was holed up in some kind of compound in the West Bank, and was dependent on Israeli food shipments that came in each day.
Or if Hamas wanted to kill him, and he had many, many enemies, large numbers of enemies, and of course he was vastly corrupt.
Yeah.
And so huge amounts of money was taken by him. His wife's now living very comfortably in
Paris. Isn't that a shame? Hundreds of millions of dollars
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
that they sent to Paris for the 2 of them to live nicely.
That's right.
And the Palestinian folks are
Well,
scraping a living.
that's right.
That's terrible.
Yep.
All right, this from the UK Daily Telegraph. Iranians want nuclear program stopped. They did a poll there, and it showed 63% of the people that responded to the poll favor suspending the uranium enrichment program in exchange for easing the sanctions. Also, almost 90% of these same folks are opposed to Iran closing the Straits of Hormuz.
Why should that be a surprise? I mean, we suppose that the majority of people of this country are reasonably rational. They know that nothing good will happen if they close the Straits of Hormuz. What good is going to happen? What good will take place from that? And at the same time, they know that they are at the moment suffering from economic sanctions, which they don't want. They're, I'm sure, happy to exchange this troublesome nuclear program for a much more comfortable life.
I suppose for the majority of Iranian citizens, having nukes isn't going to do anything for them. This is something that the elite of the country, the ruling...
the ruling mulocracy.
Oh, very good. I like that. As in mullah.
Right.
That's what they want. That's their ambition. But for the average Iranian, the value of their currency's gone down in half.
Exactly. But who's got the guns? Who
Yeah,
controls the guns?
that's how it
the
is.
old story.
Yeah, exactly. And now a word from our sponsor, Tom of Janesville Jump Machine. Hey, Tom.
Hi,
How you doing?
just fine.
All right, now, that's really cute. Now, explain what this is, Tom.
It's called a pony hop. It's kind of the newest thing around the country. And what I do, I'm going to be doing this for your backyard birthday party to start with. We're going to set up 4 lanes in your backyard with like caution tape so the kids right away have something to do. And this is good for company picnics and church functions, anything where there's a big yard.
Well, now, before we were talking, you and I, about sometimes this is used for racing, where you'll have lanes for the kids to race.
Right.
Tell us how that works.
Okay, well, like I did some research on YouTube, and there's different kinds of racing formats, but the kind I'm starting out with is just using caution tape for your own backyard. And there's fancy, like inflatable racing zones on YouTube also, which I'll probably be getting later on.
Okay, now we were short a child here at the station, so Katie was kind enough to volunteer. What's the usual ages that will enjoy this product?
We got 3 sizes, smallest for ages 3 to 6, medium for ages 7 to 12, and then there's the adult size also. There's a larger one than that for adults.
Oh,
So adults can have fun with these.
well, that's fantastic. That would be, I could see a fun drunken pool party in the summer
Exactly.
with them using these
Right.
these
I
devices.
just got to get my deposit first, so when they break one, I shouldn't have said that.
That's very good. All right, so give us the information. Anybody who has an interest in renting this item,
Okay.
where would they contact you?
I got the website jjmachines.com, and my phone is 608-359-7107.
Very good. Thanks for being here today and demonstrating, Katie. Thank you so much. Now back to our show. All right, this from the New York Times. Russia pressured Assad of Syria on Monday to be more flexible about the future of his ravaged country, insisting that he talk with his adversaries. Also, the Kremlin invited anti-Assad delegation to the Kremlin and is now restricting shipments of new weapons to Syria. Now, this is quite a change.
It's quite a change because I think that the Moscow government understands that Assad's days are numbered. Now, they may not be numbered in weeks or even in months, but he's going to go. He is going to go. And the Russians don't want to be on the losing end of this stick. They want to be a part of it. They want to be a player. And they don't want to lose their influence. And so they are trying to maneuver, I think, reasonably intelligently, so that they won't be left out in the cold.
You know what this means? That means that the U.S. and Russia now finally are on the same page on this.
Not quite on the same
Well,
page.
here's what I think. I don't think either country wants to see the Free Syrian Army take over, because that's supposed to be Al
We are
Qaeda.
supporting the Free Syrian Army.
Well, them and their compatriots, not necessarily that group, but neither Russia nor the U.S. wants the others to take over because they tend to be Al Qaeda sympathizer types, supposedly.
Some.
So both the U.S. and Russia, if they could get Assad to step down and someone else in the ruling clique take over, as happened in Yemen that we talked about last week, then problem solved.
A win-win situation.
It seems to be. Then Russia's still their close ally.
Right, but that all depends on the events on the ground. If the Syrians themselves are ready to accept this kind of compromise imposed upon them by the so-called great powers.
Well, one article I read said that actually a lot of the rebel action is supported and helped and encouraged by Kuwaiti, Saudi, French, British, and U.S.
Militarily,
Special
yes.
forces.
Militarily.
So if everyone decided that,
That they end the military aid?
yeah,
Well, if they ended the...
and
prob-
Turkey too.
The problem is if they ended the military aid, then Assad would wipe the floor with them.
No. I mean, if Assad goes, if he makes a deal,
That's
and he lets
different.
someone else take over, Assad's gone, the country returns to the way it was.
Possible.
Everybody's
that's,
happy.
That would be a reasonable settlement.
Okay. This from the Kuwait news agency. Israeli army troops set afire farm fields late Saturday, southeast of the town of Khan Yunis in the south of the Gaza Strip. Lately, the Israeli army started to burn fields located next to the demarcation line between Israel and the Gaza Strip to prevent landowners, farmers, from reaching their properties. The troops had warned the farmers that they would shoot if they approached within 300 meters of the fence. I guess they've had some problems, I guess.
Yeah, look, rockets are called problems.
Well, the
right?
rockets don't have to be right up to the fence. But,
No, but they can be set off by nearby the fence.
well, 300 yards.
And 300 yards.
But
that's right.
maybe it refers more to the kidnappings that they had last year or so, where these guys
Oh,
come,
that's also possible.
break through the fence, grab a soldier, and
I don't know.
it's kind of a good deal. You grab one Israeli soldier, and then you bargain for
And
1,000
you bought it for 1,000.
of your guys to get out of
I
prison.
know. I really don't know the reason that they're doing it, but clearly they don't do it just for fun.
All right, let's see. Oh, we got Iran next. This is from Reuters. Iran has reached agreements with European refiners to sell some of its oil through a private consortium, a move designed to circumvent the sanctions. That's interesting.
At a discount, too.
Well, yeah, but that's the problem. Iran used to sell 20% of its oil to Europe, and now they talk about they're going to sell 20% to this consortium. It's just a slick way to get around.
Yeah, I don't think they can manage that.
That's what it says.
Well, that's what they say, but the controls now are really pretty nifty.
It says here, in accordance with this agreement, it is planned that 20% of Iran's oil exports will go through this private consortium.
Tehran says that. Tehran says that. Tehran says a lot of things.
Well,
Whether we can give that credence, I think, is certainly debatable.
well, I suppose whoever set up the sanctions, whatever.
We will know who buys that oil. And when we know who buys that oil, great pressure will be put upon them. That's for sure.
I guess so. And there's something with insurance also. Transporting anything Iranian.
Yes, absolutely. What shipping company is going to is going to transport that?
Right, good point.
Oh my!
Good point. All right, got a few minutes left. This from Reuters. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel gave the go-ahead on Sunday to reforms that would end the exemption of Orthodox Jewish men from military service. This after 20,000 Israelis marched for changes to the law. Israel's first prime minister approved this policy of exempting what was then a small group of 400 seminary students. The original handful has grown to about 60,000 men.
Right. And Netanyahu realizes that something has to be done. It's a difficult political move, but I think he's going to do it. Whether they can bring that all about in the near future is another matter, but it's going to be done.
I'm surprised it got this far. I mean, a small country like that, it would seem that people would have noticed years before that this wasn't fair.
Well, they didn't notice that it wasn't fair, but then to do something about it.
Well, the other guys are spending 3 years in the military.
That's right.
These guys.
They don't really need these guys. See, that's the point.
Well, it's for the fairness. Well,
It's for the fairness issue.
Well, they can
That's
also,
right.
if you have more guys in, you can cut the length of time that they have served.
To some degree, that's right. But they're going to cause some problems as well until you integrate them into the force. But that's okay. They'll do that.
All right, let's deal with domestic issues now. We've got several articles about the photo ID laws. Now we have.
Oh, yeah.
We have Texas. On Monday, July 2nd, that is, Texas officials went to court, I assume, against the Obama administration, in order to defend a new voting law.
But the Obama administration lost the last time out, too. That is, the court decided, not too long ago, that voter ID is okay, right?
So this must be well, all right, whatever.
In another case. In this case, they really try to show that there's hardship, right? That is to say, it's a long ways to go to get the ID, and it's difficult and all, and therefore they won't do it. And if that's the case, you suppress voter turnout, and it's all wrong.
All right, well, let me just say it goes on. Before you can vote in Texas, according to their law, you've got to produce a photo ID. And about 600,000 Texans, they claim, lack a photo ID. Now, there's another state, Pennsylvania. Here it's a little more strict. It's only certain kinds of ID. It's not just any ID. This from The Nation. Voters in Pennsylvania will feel the brunt of a bill signed into law this past March, which may disenfranchise nearly 10% of voters statewide and 18% of the voters in Philadelphia. More than 180,000 of Philadelphia's voters lack proper ID. That's a lot of people. I don't know if that's accurate. Maybe the one side exaggerates, maybe not.
Oh, of course, the one side exaggerates, but of course the other side also says.
They both exaggerate.
Sure.
I guess so. What do you think is going to happen? So already there's a court, a lower court, I take it,
has already known. I think the Supreme Court has already
well, in the case,
dealt with a part of this, but now this shows significant hardship in this case.
I see. So
guess.
that's what they're trying.
But the truth of the matter is that there is some. You know, it's the old joke, you're right and you're right and you're right too. That is, it is the case that Republicans are in favor of this kind of thing and Democrats are against it. And they're against it because we suppose that the ones that do not have any kind of ID are of the disadvantaged group in the economic scheme of things, and that they would probably vote for the Democrats.
Well, right off the bat, I don't know how many homeless there are in the nation, but they're not likely to have ID. And they would tend to vote Democrat, I would think.
Yes,
also,
if they vote.
If they vote, yeah, that's right. Depends if they're busy that day.
Yes, of course.
All right, let me leave off this show with this last article from the Guardian of London. 2 young Britons and an American have been gored during the famous bull run in the northern Spanish city of Pamplona, as foreigners once more became the favored target of the festival's fighting bulls.
Yeah.
I like that. The 2 Britons were both gored after one bull turned back on the runners and attacked a mass of people that were cowering against the barrier.
Yes.
This run attracts more than 2,000 people every morning of the 9-day festival. Many are young foreigners drawn to the event made famous by Ernest Hemingway.
It'd be even better if they were Germans, because of course the Spaniards, like the Greeks, now dislike the Germans, right?
I see. All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us today here at NewsDesk, and tune in next week for another episode. That's Channel 95 analog, Channel 991 digital, or on YouTube at NewsDesk WYOU. If you're watching us on TV, coming up next is Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. This is Jason Miller, broadcasting from Madison, Wisconsin. Bye for now.